Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 278, I have Steven Benedict with me today. He is a professional track athlete, foster care reform advocate, podcaster, keynote speaker, human optimization specialist. Yeah. What else do you do? Is there anything?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, not much more. No,
Oh
no.
wait, and former Olympian is that as
Yeah.
well?
Yes, yes,
Is that
yes.
done? Is that done? Yes, yes. Amongst my other monikers, uh, superhero as well. Yeah. How are you today, sir?
I am quite well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it greatly.
I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad to have it. Yeah. I have to say, look, yeah, your life seems to be a charmed life where every was nice, simple, straightforward, no trials and tribulations. How did you manage to get through life with no stress at all?
Oh, well, I think I'm gonna have to stop you in your tracks right there because it is quite the opposite. Quite the
Oh.
opposite.
Yeah. Let's just say uh where you sit today and how you got there must have been one hell of a hard journey because you did not have the greatest of starts, you know?
Yeah, that is very true, and it has been. I think for the most part, anybody who does tell you that their life is all hunky dory, unless they're coming from a space of a golden spoon in their mouth, exactly when they come out of birth. But that was far from the truth for me, and in it's always a process. Yeah, I've been very lucky and blessed to be where I am now, and to continue that kind of trajectory. But no, the beginning was very rough. I was I was put into foster care at a very young age. I was put into foster care at 4 months due to neglect and unstable situations. Then I was put back into my mother's hands not too long after that. Um, then my brother was born, and even at that particular juncture, we were still living in very volatile situations. We were living in and out of motel rooms. We had unstable situations. We were being neglected, and then we also had very severe abuse by the boyfriend from my mother at that time. Sought fit to kind of let his stress out on us whenever it was feasible for him.
Right. I see. Yes, I take it you're not going to be sending him any Christmas cards anytime soon.
Yeah, no, he didn't make the Christmas list. He didn't make the Christmas list.
Yeah. So, to say the least, but
Mm.
with regards to your sort of early time, like your formative years, like what like what was some of the what sort how can I put this? How did you start to get out of it? Like with regards to being in the system and yeah, finding the family. How did that work out?
Mm. That took some time. That was a period of transition, a lot of transitions that were happening all at once. So after that particular period of living in and out of motel rooms with my brother, we were taken and put back into foster care for another 6 years. So we bounced up and down around the East Coast from foster home to foster home for several years. I believe we were in and out of foster homes, three different homes until we were in a semi-permanent home for the latter part of our foster care experience. And then we were blessed enough to be adopted by two great individuals at the age of 8 and 6. They really changed our perspective, but more so gave us a second chance at life, so
Mm.
to say. Uh, they introduced us to what that word family means again. They opened up the doors to things like education and art and music, and just community. So it was really our, I want to say, our revamp or restart or reboot at life.
Mm,
At a later part, I always look at when I reflect back and I look at my childhood was very accelerated for me in this space that I didn't really have time to be a kid. Yeah, I was more in the space of having to be almost like a father figure for my brother
mm,
because he was very young. And so I took the brunt and absorbed a lot of the experiences and things that was happening. And what I mean by that is like if you compare our stories now, my brother doesn't have a lot of the kind of scenarios that happened when we were in foster care. I really much absorbed that. And I think you find that a lot with a lot of the firstborn elder kind of brother sister relationships, brother relationships and things like that. Is like that forefront is kind of put the brunt on the firstborn. So
yes. No, basically, look, if you're the firstborn, the oldest, yeah, you're kind of the pathfinder for like, yeah, for the siblings coming up. It's like you get the hardest as the firstborn. Like the kid what comes second, they get it slightly easier. And yeah, then the youngest out of them all, if there's three, they're the golden child where, yeah, basically they can run free because yeah, parents have gone through it twice. But yeah, in your scenario, being the oldest, like being that sort of pathfinder, I would say not so much a pathfinder. There is some of that, but more of a protective shield to like your brother to sort of maybe like spare him some of the slings and arrows you most probably like seen coming or had like coming your way to prevent that coming to him. Yeah.
yeah, without a doubt, that's exactly how I perceive it and look at the situation. It was more of a shield. It was more of an absorption and a protective kind of bubble
Mm,
from all those situations and all of those kind of very harsh memories. Um, which definitely comes out at a later extent. I mean, there's only so much that a human can bottle up and absorb until it starts to exude and just explode itself out all over the place. So
no, I can imagine because like this is the thing. Like, okay, once adopted, it's like trying to switch from some type of survival mode into some like type of like, okay, you're secure, you're safe, and you don't need to worry about certain things. It's must take a lot because like a friend of mine, he like over in the States, he like spent time like his mother couldn't take care of him and he ended up in a house like in upstate New York. And basically it was like they were telling me, yeah, there was many a night where he would go to the fridge because food and stuff like that was an issue because it was like lack of. And now it was like you don't need to worry about that because the fridge is full all the time. You don't need to worry about X, Y, and Z because it's taken care of. You're safe. You're secure. Switching that off, it said it took a little bit of time. I can only imagine how long it took you yourself, you know?
yeah, without a doubt, there was definitely a big transition period of learning to, like I said earlier, learning to integrate yourself back into a family situation,
Mm,
but understanding more so than the the spaces in which that this is stable now and this is longevity. It's not going away. It's not getting, so to say, the rug pulled out from underneath your feet overnight,
mm,
and you don't have to live out of a suitcase anymore. Or in our cases, the first thing that you get, or the first thing that we received when we went into foster care, was a trash bag to put our stuff in. So that was our suitcase. So very big pieces there that every now and then you kind of get that flashback. I've done a talk on, that symbolism of a trash bag where people every day is just, this is what they put their trash in.
Mm,
But if you take it on the back end, for many kids, that's what their suitcase and their belongings are carried in. So it's kind of that switch. A lot of those switches were happening. A lot of those, trust was a very big platform that had to be built up in that relationship with my parents and us. And my brother went through a phase of a lot of, belligerency and a lot of not acceptance, because for us being in foster care for such a long period of time, and within that last period having the most the closest thing that resembled family to us, he felt like our adopted parents were pulling us away from them.
mm,
So he thought that was our home, and it wasn't. So it was kind of all of those nuances of trying to pave out a very bumpy road, so
mm.
to say.
No, I can imagine, because like I can only imagine it in that type of scenario, like where you're being pulled away, like getting taken out of the system. And yeah, the system is when like ultimately it's a bit cold, heartless, and it just runs by the numbers. So yeah, up in up and leaving in like 1 day's notice, being taken out of us, like you might be in a place where you've been there for about 3 6 months, starting to settle down, you're gone. And I can imagine for your brother, that was like normal. And with regards to taking normal away into this new form of normal, understanding how things work, it's a different game. It's a different ball field completely, you know?
Well, yes, it definitely is. And, it's funny. I think one of the earliest assets, or life assets, I guess you could call them, or awarenesses that we had to build up was, surroundings in our environments.
Mm,
Being aware. For me, it was awareness of my environment. Being very aware of what was going on, who was around us, who were we interacting with, where are we going next.
mm,
It's those are that environment awareness was very keen on my side of things. And for him, there was the attachments pieces. We're so young and we're so absorbent in that space. So of course there's a lot of attachment. We're trying to find out who we are, or we're trying to kind of set that foundation of us as kids, but we're not given that chance, or having some type of seeds being able to be watered by the people that we're around. If you're in a stable home and you have your parents there, they're your water source, right? They're constantly watering the seeds of their children and allowing them to grow in a space of education and school and their teachers. They have consistency across the board, so that it helps them to grow in a lot faster manner. We didn't have consistency.
mm.
So everything, there was no seeds really being planted.
Uh, so like so when you did get this consistency, like how did it manifest in driving you forward? Because there's a number of ways it could go, but how did it sort of like, oh, wait a second. Hey, huh,
Yeah, there was a lot of alleys being kind of, there was a lot of spaces in which I had to work out, that were, some would cross paths and some were kind of trajectories of that have sustained to where I've been able to go now. And a lot of those things, one, it was due to sports. I was able to be put into certain sports. The first thing that I did, or the first sport that my parents had put us in, was martial arts. So I did judo for about 10 years. And that laid a very, very good foundation in the sense of discipline and due diligence. And just being able to focus and understand structure, that has always been a staple for me. And plus, my mother was a teacher as well. She was a second grade English teacher. She taught English to international students. So we had that constant breeding ground for us, which I believe helped us all out a lot and accelerated us in a lot of spaces. You know, my father was ex-Vietnam, and he was a Marine. So, and then he worked in on the New York Stock Exchange. So we had a very dynamic in-house, so to say, of helping us groom these things.
Right. Right. That is a that is a very interesting family dynamic, because the reason why I say this, okay, look, mother school teacher and father like Vietnam vet doing the stock exchange. Now that is like you go, right. That's discipline on one side, and that's like discipline with added like they both come in pressure, but
Mhm.
sort of added pressure on a daily basis where a tick of a number going up or down, it's it could be a great day or a bad day for your dad. Like, so did like did they sort like did you pick up the lessons of like saying like structure and discipline outside of martial arts from them to sort of like build on a bigger sort of basis?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about my parents' dynamic was that when I look back on it, is like you would think that from my father's side, coming from a very military background, there was that very due diligence, straight-laced kind of approach to life. And
Mm-hmm.
it was actually for us in our experience, it was actually the opposite. We
Yeah.
looked at him as kind of like the joy of life. He was very go lucky, happy. Around Christmas time, he was like Santa Claus. He actually, when we walked through department stores, people would actually ask him, or the department store would actually ask him to be Santa Claus. He had a white beard. He looked very much like Kenny Rogers. And so he had these aspects to him that were very, this epitome of joy of life, always laughing, always had a smile on his face, always very lighthearted. Uh, Now, on my mother's side of the equation, my mother was very due diligent and very structured, and was a very affluent woman within our community. I mean, she had a very vocal voice, and she was involved in everything we did. Every sport that we were involved in, she was involved or had her hands in something, whether it be the gosh, the booster club
Mm.
president, or the president of the Little League for us, and just had a lot of influence in the families and the students in which she impacted. And then ultimately, the same thing for us. The board of directors and the mayor wanted her on the board, so she had a very prolific voice within the community. So it was almost like you would look at it from a space. Oh, these are their careers, but the entities and the dynamics were switched. Yeah,
No, that's fantastic. My
yeah.
God. Like father, like pure joy, and a
Mhm.
mother who like was so organized, and like she was like, yes, if she could, she would like, if you give the opportunity, she might have taken over a small country.
Oh yeah, she took over a lot. Believe me, she took over a lot in her time. Yes.
So with this, with this, like this great attention, like these sort like great role models, like guiding you along the way, like did they finally get you into the track, or was it a case of like some like gruff old coach was like watching you walk down and like, have you ever thought about doing track, kid? how did they how did you get there?
Yeah, that was it was a combination of a couple of things there. As I had said, I've done every sport under the sun, yeah, from doing martial arts to playing football and soccer and baseball. Football was the next thing that really stuck. and was starting to be developed. I played junior football and then went into high school. And then when I was in high
What was your
school,
position on the football team?
so I played free safety and then I also played halfback on offense.
Huh,
So
you see,
yeah.
look, I played American football for a little bit. I was a cornerback. Yeah,
Okay.
like yeah, free safety and strong safety, two of the craziest people on the team.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty
It's
much.
like,
You're always out there.
it's like, just like who can I pick off? Who can I pick
Yeah.
off?
Exactly. Exactly. That's pretty much all we do out there. But in the development stages, that when I was a freshman in high school,
Hmm,
when I was out on the football field, the track coach did see me and he approached me and my parents and was very interested in having me come out for the winter season. And really, it really wasn't something that was on my radar at all. I really had no desire to. I didn't even really know what the sport was about.
yeah.
And I had really made a decision that I wanted to go into wrestling during the winter season, which would be after football. I would go into wrestling because wrestling was very similar to judo.
Mm,
Judo was, more technical aspect. So I was like, oh, this will be easy. I'll go right into wrestling. And my mother, being the woman that she was, oh, you've done this and this and this. Why don't you go out and try track and see what it's about? And reluctantly, I was like, okay, whatever. And I went out my freshman year and ran indoors and outdoors, wound up winning county championships as a freshman, pretty much on talent or, God-given ability at that particular time. There wasn't a lot of yeah, yes, there was training and yes, we did have a program, but at the early stages it's just kind of like really you can tell who's got talent and who's running on natural ability and who is kind of like working at it. So that's kind of like the first seed of things. And then it kind of really grew on me and things just really started to expand in that space. And I was blessed enough over the years in my high school career to run with a great group of guys, talented group of athletes that we were able to see. Well, I was able to see what the sport was from a broader perspective. And that's very rare for a high school athlete to do when you're able to kind of go to these international meets. So I ran in like Penn Relays, which is a world meet. I've ran in international meets, and our team was second in the state for our 4x4 team. So we got to travel and got to see a broader horizon of what the sport was and interlaced with some of the pro athletes at that time. So it really opened the doors and really cultivated me as an athlete and really grew on me from the sense that I really enjoyed the standpoint in which that it was a very soul sport. It was pretty much whatever you put back into the sport gives you back.
mm,
Uh, there is no team aspect to it. I mean, there is a team aspect in order to like gain points for winning a championship or something like that. But basically, when you're on the track, you're on the track. It's you, solely you, against the gun, against the clock, and you have every other athlete that's in their own lane.
mm.
So it's pretty much you on you.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. It brings up a number of things because look, like I think with a lot of people in this sort of day and age, where they want to find out what they want to do in their life, I think sometimes they don't do enough stuff. There's a case of you just need to go out and do a lot of stuff. Just like, oh, right, and see what type of thing fits. It's either fits or you've actually stumbled on something where you've got a natural talent for it. And then
Mm-hmm.
you can then elevate that natural talent, or you go with that fit and yes, oh, I enjoy this. It's a nice fit for me. And you go with that. I think a number of people just don't do that enough these days because look, you could have been like, yeah, you may have been a fine wrestler, but you're an exceptional like track star, you know? You could have been an okay footballer, but you're definitely an exceptional track star. Foot, like soccer, all of these things. But you wouldn't have been able to find any of that if you didn't actually go out there and do some stuff. I think that's really rewarding. And with regards to like being fortunate to be in a great pool of people to help elevate you along the way, that's always a good thing, you know, because I think we are sometimes handicap ourselves from like basically I'm the best at doing what I'm doing right now, and I don't need to really push myself. It, but if you've
Mhm.
got that group around you, like going, wait a second, get up, you son of a bitch. You need to go hard that little bit harder because I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna take your place in the team, or I'm gonna make sure, yeah, if I do beat you, you are going to hear about it for a very long time. That helps elevate people as well. I I might be talking out my I see that's the way I see it. You might disagree with me, you might agree, you know?
Yeah, no, I believe that there is, I believe strongly that there is a trial and error for life, and I think that in order to, we're always evolving, right? Gosh, I don't know, every 7 to 10 years, we're pretty much a new person. Even every 3 years, you're a new person. You have new things, new experiences that are adding to your current life experience. And I think that those things are constantly changing. And if we aren't per se malleable and allowing ourselves to shape and shift and adapt to new situations,
Mm,
we're not allowing ourselves to really let those capabilities in which may have been lying dormant to come out and kind of manifest and show themselves. And that's one of the things I always been open to trying new things. I'm not scared to try anything new, even if I feel like I don't know anything about the space. With this day and age, there's no reason why you can't learn about a specific space with all the technology and knowledge that is open and free to us to
mm-hmm,
absorb. It's just about learning the modalities of things. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me as a track and field sprinter, is that sprinters are some of the best athletes in the world. And I may get, thrown under the bus by a couple of people by hearing, but but it's quite all right. And what I mean by that is not like, yes, world class athletes, Olympic athletes, some of the best athletes in the world. The only You can place a track and field sprinter in any other sport, and the only thing that they would have to learn would be the modalities of that particular sport. So whether it be soccer, whether it be football, whether it be basketball, whether it be baseball. Yes, there's things that they have to learn, but if you look across the board, every one of those, the foundation is running at some point, sprinting. The fastest person in that is usually a standout athlete, whether it be in baseball. They're running to first base or they steal bases. After the ball is hit and they get on the base, it's all about running, and it's all about, and even when they're on the field, running to the ball, getting to the ball. Basketball, the same thing. Football, the same thing. Soccer is the same thing. Everything is a running base. So that's why you have some of these in a lot of the sports, they look at sprinters programs and seeing how those things are adaptive to other sports. But, and I think that's very, very important to translate to how I approach life too, is that what I take on the track, I usually try to take off the track. And that means like the due diligence, the soul aspect of putting into the effort of other things, not being able to being open to learn other things. Cause I've had several different coaches, and it's great to have the knowledge that you have from a previous coach, but you have to be open and willing to be coached by a new coach that is maybe a higher caliber of a coach. And they're going to have a different modality and a different program, parameters in which to make you better. But if you think you know it all, You're not going to be able to absorb it, and you're not going to be able to really change and shift and become something more. So that's been a big piece in my athletics to life translation.
Mm, yeah, like this is the thing. If you can't, as the Buddhists say, empty your cup, you never pick up anything new. So like this is the thing. Like, have you found with all of your athletics training and yes, taking it forward into like the wider world, that you've had to do a complete like 180 on some of the things, like directions you've been going in or on the project or anything like that?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I've always had to be able to pivot and shift and shape. Like I would have I would have my own kind of initial direction.
Mm,
Like you have a kind of a set of like, okay, this, and this is what if I follow this program preseason and I have this quarter, this is phase two, this is phase three, this is phase four, I should be able to hit these marks by that time. Now, that's great, all said and done, but life does happen and life can throw you curveballs and you can have nicks and knacks and things along the way that kind of sidetrack you, or you have to have recovery days, or you have to have you have slight injuries, and which all come alongside with being an athlete, or whether you're in business, or whether you're off the track and doing other things in a nonprofit world, or you're doing things with other brands and stuff. It's great to have a plan, but you also have to be able to pivot and adapt to change, and to adapt to the circumstances that don't fit the puzzle or kind of up and surprise you in the moment. And that's, I think, a big differentiator between people who are successful and people who are frustrated and trying to be successful, because they're not they're not adapting to change. They don't want change. They're afraid of change. And a lot of things, change is good. Change is good. I think change makes you better.
I I agree. Look, I agree with change does make you better. It comes down to like how you apply that change. I would say to be like for the most successful people in this world, I think it's about how they can adapt their consistency as quickly as possible. Like the people who adapt their consistency fastest generally come out of it more successful. It's like, okay, I'm picking up this new skill and I can consistently do this again and again and again and improve and improve and improve. What a lot of people do when I've like witnessed like people who fail to change, they will they're like, I'm going to change today. What are you going to do? I'm going to go and climb that mountain over there. How much mountain training have you had? None. Maybe you should go to a climbing wall or something like that first. No, I'm going to that mountain. For the rare people, they can go out there and do it, but it's very rare and it doesn't normally happen. But they go, right, I tried going to that mountain. Yeah, what happened? I failed. Are you going to go back? Or are you going to go to the climbing wall? Like I said, no, I can't do it. Done. And they can't get that consistent flow going. So it
Mhm.
just throws them off. And I think a lot of success comes down to being able to adapt consistency quickly.
Yeah, and I think on the points that you were talking about, that is, there's a lack of preparation,
Mm,
right? And there's a lack of preparation. Thus why many times, so you take the athletic world, so
mm,
many times you don't see track and field athletes, or you don't see big big races until it's like world championships, or you see the Olympics. You don't see all the other things that they're doing for 4 years and all the preparation. They don't just show up at an Olympic trials, or they don't just show up at a championship meet. There's, countless years, countless hours. I mean, 30 hours a week of preparation for a 20-second race. They're not showing up in a 200 meters and being like, hey, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but that's the brutal thing about athletics because, okay, for example, if you take like football, basketball, like any sport which is like run over like a sort of regular season, like you go, okay, you can prepare and you can have peaks and troughs and you can adjust. But when it comes to track and field, be it running on the track, javelin, like it's there, that moment in time. It's like, hey, it's the iceberg sport of all things, track and field, in my opinion. Same thing with like gymnastics in some respects as well, because everything goes into, as you say, that one moment. But ooh, the peak, it's a lot of pressure right there. A lot of pressure. It's an
Yeah.
inverse iceberg. It's like,
Yeah, there is definitely a huge weight on the shoulders to step to the line.
mm,
And but again, like you said, consistency, then that plays a big part. So the best of the best are consistent in translating and transitioning what they do in practice
yeah.
to competition days.
Mm,
There's a seamless cross across the board that they're doing what they train at a high level in practice, and they bring that to the track on competition days and just turn the level up just a little more. They're not changing their technique. They're not changing anything that they've worked on, fluidity. It's all the preparation, everything is done beforehand. Now they're just out there and just letting it all out and run and doing what their body knows best to do.
mm. I am curious about like with yourself. Like, do you see it as nerves or excitement? How do you see it?
Mm. That it's been both at times, to be honest. It's been both at times. I've had I've had high anxiety for performance, and then I've also been very flow and very, in the state of doing what I need to do and being very confident. So that's also a very practiced technique too. You have to practice that. That's something that you can't just show up if you can't just show up on the day of and expect it to show up if you're not practicing that part in training sessions. It's not going to be there as well. You're going to show up and it's going to be a different level. You're going to feel the pressure. That's why having a good group and a good camp with you and other really talented athletes around you, that you're constantly feeling that pressure a little bit, that
Mm,
you can train under it, and it becomes a norm.
yeah, no, I hear that. I hear that. Like one of the things which I often like, uh, the film Any Given Sunday always
Mm.
comes to mind. Love that film, but like there, like everyone focuses on the one speech where he's in the locker room. You've seen it time and time again,
Yes.
but like the one speech which really stuck out to me is when he's talking to Jamie Foxx in his house, and he's talking about, yeah, the camaraderie he had with those players, and like, yeah, and like he was like talking about this other player was like, yeah, he said he'll give it all up to like have another moment just with those guys, in that like to be with them. How was the sort of transition away from that, not having like that sort of camaraderie anymore for you? Like, how did you sort of replace that?
From like a high school experience or a college experience to
Like, basically any time, because like this is the thing. Like going from high school, like that's one stage. Going from college, that's another. But when you're a professional,
yeah.
mm, like yeah. But when like it was like kind of like, hey, I am a professional, but I'm doing more other things, moving away from it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, again, I believe that community plays a big part in our lives,
Mm,
right? And you heard the famous saying, "You are the sum of the five most people that you hang around with."
yes.
And I'm very particular and very focal on the people that are around me and the people I speak into and the people that speak into me and the things that I'm doing. Even now, as I'm have about 2.5 years left in my career as an athlete. Um, my it's not so much it's great to have the other athletes, but even more so, what is important to me is to have a great relationship and communication with my coach. That has become a very big staple for me. That communicating piece to being able to understand our language, how I receive information, how he delivers it back to me in order for me to develop. Those things are super important. So it's those type of community aspects. And I think very much in today's society and how things have built over the past 2 years with things like, outside circumstances of things like the pandemic and all these other things that have unfolded and have really intruded in people's lives, is that community has taken a very big hit in people's lives and they've lost sight. And that's where a lot of, you know, self confidence has been lost and direction has been lost, and a lot of homes have been broken down and families have been broken down because their community has been impacted by those things. So having a very direct community when I'm on the track and off the track is a key ingredient for me personally to thrive, but I think as humans it's a very key element for us to thrive.
Mm. No, I agree. Like this is the thing. When you say, yeah, having like people like good people around you with regards to look, I don't know about you, but like yes, everyone I'd say everyone on this planet has that little voice. Well, two little voices. One is like the negative beast which lives within us all, which basically tries to downplay, and like in some ways it's kind of a safety mechanism, but it's just like, oh my God. Some of the stuff you were like, if you let that loose and you met someone who said some of the stuff to you in the face, like you'll be punching that person like, and why? It's like, I don't know you, but like, yeah. But there's also the cheerleader, what lives within us as well, which you sometimes like you hear, but they kind of like really have to focus in on listening to that voice to like go, right, okay, I can do this. Yeah, things can go my way. But if you've got people around you, like giving you that sort of negative pipeline, that negative like beastie will like go, yeah, you see, that's what I'm talking about. Given that sort of having people around you to help amplify that positive voice, that cheerleader within, it's most important, you know? And yeah, with regards to community, and I think with what you were saying with the last 2 years and the pandemic and everything like this, I think people have kind of lost their way with what true community means. It's not over an app. It's about the people you live next door to, your neighbors, who you like can see, talk to, touch, like interact with on a personal level, not like tens of thousands of miles away. Look, I love technology. I love it's helping us talk right now. But I think people have got too caught up with, I've got friends over all the way over in like Kilimanjaro or whatnot, when next door there could be a person who could either amplify their lives, or that you could amplify their lives. Uh, that's what I mean, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances there, and there's a lot of pieces there that play in the part of I'd like to say playing the part of what our human experience is. And I think that human experience is very unique to each and every one of us. We all have our own stories, right? We all, or I should say, we all are a living story. Like I'm living out my story from my first person experiences and things. And when you talk about like those things that you were talking about, like kind of like that good and bad angel that is sitting on you, and you're constantly having that conversation, and you're sitting in the middle, and it's which one you're going through. And I think for me, in my personal experiences, is that bad side or that negative side has always been attachments to whatever past experience that I've had,
Mm,
and trying to keep me in that comfort zone of being like, hey, don't go this route, because if you go this route, this is the experience that might happen. That might happen is the key word. And which a lot of the time, 90%, 99% of the time, those things don't transpire and they don't happen. Um, and that kind of keeps us in that space of comfort, deflect, don't try something new, don't evolve, don't become something more. But then when we're able to break out of that space and step into something new, and we experience something new, what happens is that what I've experienced is that I've been able to break some of those chains, break some of those past chains, and go into something new, and be able to add a new asset to my life that really shapes and shifts me into a whole new decade of new experiences. So it's, are we willing to let go of what our past experiences are? And that does not mean that they're not important or they don't play a part in our lives, but we can't let them dictate our lives.
mm,
That's a big key that I've had to learn from all my past experiences and my trials and tribulations, from losing two sets of parents at an early age. I not only lost my birth parents, but I lost my adopted parents as well. To extreme situations, and not many people can say they've lost two sets of parents in a lifetime. And so, those things can put you in a very, questionable space of, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? When is it my turn? Like this deserving mentality, this victim mentality, which all kind of feeds that negative aspect of,
mm,
you know, comparison. Why are they ahead in this space and I'm not moving in this space? Uh, you know, that comparisons piece is such a killer and is such a debilitator in our lives that we don't get to really divulge, and we don't get to become the people that we really have our heart's desires on, because we're so afraid of stepping out of the shadows and trying to step to new light, because we're afraid from our past experiences.
mm.
So
Yeah, no, this is the thing with regards to the past. Like, it's like the past is something you reflect on. You have a quick look and go, right, in my present, I've looked to the past, I made mistakes here, there, and everything, and this is how it can affect the present. And you move on with that, go, oh, those are the lessons. Let me apply it to my present. So yeah, I can build for the future. But too often people like dwell in their past, like either past sorrows or past glory. And they like go, right. And when they're doing that, they say stay so fixed. It just like basically they miss the opportunity in the present to build that better future. And it's like it's quite crazy when you look at it, because we've been all guilty of it at some point in our lives. I don't say this sitting upon some high horse. I go, this has never happened to me, because no, thank God. The amount of times I've like dwelled on this, dwelled on that, and then it's like, yeah, that opportunity is gone. But it's not a case of like looking at that past opportunity, that present opportunity going. There will be other opportunities. It's just a case of you always got to be mindful not to dwell too much in the past, you know?
Well, yes, definitely. Without, and that's a great point. Is that yes, we're always going to have opportunities. There's in our lifetime, there's not a lack of opportunities. There's a
Indeed.
lack of awareness of opportunities, which I think a lot of people which we all, I think, can learn from, because we are in very space of go, 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 one thing to another. Here's my schedule. This is what I got to go. And
Mm,
this is where I have to be at this particular time, get this and this done by this particular date. And I think having that mentality is always on the gas and not the brake. And we miss a lot of the things flying by
mm,
instead of kind of, okay, hey, all right, there's a specific time and a space to be on the gas, to accelerate, and then there's also a time and a space to let off the gas and coast a little bit and slow down and absorb and see what's around you and understand where you're at. Give yourself kudos and a pat on the back to how far you've come to where you were, take reflections on that spaces, like that self appreciation of, hey, I know if I've had to do it a lot and remind myself is that, 3, 4 years ago, I wasn't here. And looking back over just that short period of time and that span, which is a drop in the bucket, I'm not talking about even the decades of things that, that have happened before, but those short period of time, like, wow, if I got through that and I'm here now, things are going to be okay.
mm.
Like, that's your self motivation, right? Like, I think we pull the motivation and the due diligence from too many other, whether it be social media or whether it be other people giving motivating speeches and stuff, in order for us to kind of light a fire in our life. We're pulling from the wrong resources. That when if we take a second to reflect on our own lives, I think we'll find a lot of the breadcrumbs in which we need to know that, hey, I was here just this short period of time and now I'm here and I'm doing much better there. I've doubled down on what I've did.
Yeah.
So
No, I hear that. And I think with what you said, I think with a lot of like people, when they are sort of looking at success and they get caught up with either watching a YouTube video, like going on Instagram and like, yeah, seeing that is the sort of marker of success. I think it's a case of they don't take enough time to like sit themselves down, reflect on what true success means to them. Because like success could mean I've got a big mansion, big car, and everything like this. Or it could mean like, yeah, I've got a stable job, I've got a family, and like, you know what I mean? Like going to a school recital is the best damn thing what's ever happened to me. I was like, okay, stop singing, baby. Yeah, there. But but you get what I mean.
yeah.
But I think that's where people sort of need to sort of really sort of sit down and take like reflect on that. And I think when they do reflect on that, they'll be able to take responsibility for the direction of their lives, not sort of putting onto some BS moniker which means nothing to them truly, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that that brings me to a point for me is within the past year, what has been the real focal point of how I'm looking at experiences, because experiences are everything for me right now, experiencing life, traveling and stuff like that, but quality of life. Quality of life. What does quality of life mean to a specific person? Does it mean, like you said, does it mean buying a car, buying a house? Or, like, is that their quality of life? I have a big house, so now feel I feel fulfilled, which is not going to happen. Just to put that out there, it's not going to happen from that. But quality of life, I mean, for me, it comes down to my relationship. It comes down to the aspects in who I'm spending time with, who am I planning future events with, who am I experiencing things with. I've done it for so long alone that being in a relationship, being engaged is like to like just it's an add-on. It's something that wasn't even on my radar. And it was just like,
You're like,
wow, this is
gotcha.
different. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Actually, I think it was the other way around. I was like, oh, I got you. Like she pulled me in and like had me and I didn't even know. And it was just like, okay.
It's like couple of
Yeah,
days.
exactly.
Never see her again. Wait a second. Wait. Yeah. Yeah. Like you said this about 2 years ago.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So, but yeah, it's been so that's where that's what's on my particular agenda. That's the, I think, with everything else that's been going on, is quality of life is been my cornerstone right now, and doing everything that I can to add to that, uh that delivers quality of life to everything.
Mm. And like when like now you've got this focus on quality of life, what sort of like what would you say you've kind of left behind and like what you've picked up?
Hmm. Yeah, I've I've left behind a lot. I've left behind a lot of things that weren't working for me, and I think those were the trials and errors. It was like kind of like preparation for me to coexist with somebody else
Mm,
and integrate my life with somebody else, and understand that integrating that with other people and building community around that. So like things like, gosh, like ego. You know, uh, ego is a big one.
You're a
Uh,
professional athlete. You've got to have some of it.
yeah, you do, but there's a time and a place to turn it off. um, so yeah, ego was one. Being like very self-centered and worrying only about me. Like, so a lot of these things don't translate to coexisting, right?
Mm,
Uh, you can't cohabitate with somebody else and be try to be the you know, waving the wand all the time, or having my crown and my staff, or stomping around like a child. So, and being able to be a good listener, you know, learning on how to listen and respond and not react to situations. So I think those are two very different assets to life. Understanding how to respond compared to understanding how to react, which is still a lesson I'm learning as well in certain situations.
I,
Uh,
I hear you. I think I need to take a lesson or two out of that book as well. So,
so
it's like, what did you say? It's like,
yeah, exactly. Quick snap of the head, learning to listen, learning to, keep an even cool. And that's not only for the keeping the space of, peace and an environment of being able to thrive in, but it's also for, self-development as well. You can't react and expect to grow at the same time. They just don't coincide, right? Reacting, causes a lot of negative tension in the body, and you can't perform, you can't think correctly, you can't respond correctly, you're not intelligent, or you don't have it shuts off a whole cortex of your brain when you react to situations, instead of when you're calm and you respond to situations. There's a distinct approach to life that is not the same. And I know when I'm doing it, and I know when I'm not. It's like I'll go from 0 to 100 when I'm reacting, and just not even remember the things that I said.
mm,
And when I'm responding, I'm having a conversation with somebody. I'm being empathetic towards what they need, and I'm being able to respond from a space of, a loving manner, and a space of growth, and a space of mutual consent.
yeah, no, that takes like this is the thing. It takes a healthy chunk of time and awareness for to get that sort of aspect of one's life in I won't say check, but I would say that aspect in one's life to help it grow, to like to make you much more of a meaningful person. Because like too often, like it's if you just go with that and as you say, shuts you off from learning, it shuts you off from just basically just being a decent person for a lot of the times. And that so much drives a wedge between the people like you want to hold closest to you. And sometimes I like losing some people along the way because of it. Uh,
Mm.
hard lessons learned. But but like taking those breaths and taking like getting this sort of meaningful like side to yourself. Now, is this like is this did this sort of give you the awareness to like go, hey, like I've got like down the road 2 years from now, I need something else to be in my life.
Hmm.
Did that sort of was that sort of the start of that, or was it something else which basically got you focused on what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think that there's, I hate to say it, but there's always a timestamp on certain things,
Mm,
and I'm always try not to always look too far into the future, but I try to look enough that things are still growing, coinciding with where I am now. And I really take a due diligence in with me and my team, whatever it be my marketing team or anything, to build things coincide with who I am as a person and what my story is, but also how can that impact other people's lives, give back, and also grow in the same space. So, we have several things that are growing. I'm doing a revamp on my website right now that's going to be kind of shaping and shifting a bunch of things as a totality of what is what I encompass, whether it be from a marketing standpoint, and developing that for brands and helping other brands with their voice, and to doing keynote aspects for conferences and speaking on several different topics that I'm passionate about. And then also having a nonprofit, which has already been almost finished developing for impacting foster youth, especially the aging out youth, and providing them skill sets to thrive and flourish, in the future of community and stuff like that. So there's a lot of moving pieces all happening at once while I'm still training at a high level. So there is a lot on the plate, but it's all good stuff, and it's just a matter of putting the time and due diligence into each one and not running off on tangents. So um I'm looking forward to this next chapter of my life
mm,
and looking forward to a lot of things unfolding. Like I said, I think, community has been a big part of what I've been doing right now and building that. And watching that shape and shift has been a delight for in my own personal growth. So,
mm. I like talking about next chapters. Team on.
yeah.
You got the t-shirt there, everything like this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I've been with these guys for about 4 years now. So Optimum Nutrition, they're amazing. They've been alongside me and my story and contributing to me and the things that I do on and off the track for a while. They are a global brand. If you're not familiar with them, they've had the number one selling protein in the world for countless amounts of years. But what I really like what we do and what the company's passionate about is constantly reformulating stuff, shaping and shifting the space of supplemental, and just really helping people really perform at a higher and better level and adding to their performance. Nothing like helps you just perform by itself. It is a supplement. It is supplemental to
Mm,
whatever you're doing. So in that sense, their ingredients, their absorption rate, and the way that they approach their brand is second to none. And I'm just really blessed to be a part of the brand and being able to bring value to things. They just launched their brand new plant protein out, which is top of the line, that's been pushed out nationally right now, and they're doing some really innovative things in the space. And I'm just happy to be one of their bigger athletes and helping them get that voice and that push across things.
fantastic. Okay. team on.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your nonprofit, and
Mhm.
basically, yeah, does like I take it ties into your foster care reform advocacy.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what like apart from your experience, what made you like go, hey, start a nonprofit? Because that's not like some of the lines people would go down. They'll talk about their past, but doing that next leap, you know?
Yeah, that's a great piece and something I'm really passionate about. And it happened, it started years ago, that I started getting kind of like that itch, but it was more so when I started to really divulge my story
Mm,
and people were asking about it, and I was doing more interviews about it, and it was, kind of just unfolding on itself. And I was really involved in a lot of other nonprofits, just kind of like behind the scenes doing things, whether it was speaking at gala dinners for them or being involved in certain events. And I was just really watching the whole space from an oversight view, and seeing how nonprofits were kind of conducting themselves and how they were allocating funds, and the lack of movement that was really being had in the space of foster care, and the impact with all the funds that were being really poured into. I just felt like it could be done better. It could be done a lot better and a lot more efficient way, and a greater way that actually brings tangible change. And so that's my approach, and that's how we are attacking this space, from segments, because I think one of the biggest things is that a lot of the nonprofits, they attack it from a very head-on approach, and it's such a vast space that you're not going to make any movement in it if you're doing that, and it has to be broken up into spaces and really segments in order to move the needle into some of these areas, like pre-intervention, or whether it be during the foster care experience, or whether it be the aging out youth. Like, they're all very different spaces, and you just can't treat them all the same under one umbrella. So our approach is, we're going to be looking and really approaching and attacking the aging out youth and helping them thrive, so
mhm.
that in hindsight they develop, they produce fruit, and they want to come back and re-pollinate the space in which they came from.
I hear that. I hear that. Like one of the things which I'm curious about, like I many moons ago, I worked as a summer camp counselor in the Fresh Air and Fund organization. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Mm-hmm.
works in upstate, like New York and upstate New York. They do like sending kids out to farms, and they do the summer camp program. And yeah, there would be some kids, and this is back in the 90s, which were in the in the system. I don't know, has this like you being like escaping the system, like exiting the system into a family. Has there been any sort of real tangible change from when you were in the system to current, like the current or the present day, or is it still the same?
That's a great question. And there has been some changes, but there hasn't been vast changes.
Mm,
In many spaces, it's gotten worse. There's more kids than ever, being put into foster care, and a lot of them go missing. So you have a lot of the cross sectioning of foster care and human trafficking.
oh,
Uh, so which becomes a very fine line, because these kids that are in foster care are very susceptible to things like, being abducted for trafficking and stuff. So in that space, it's become a little sketchy. There has been a lot of due diligence, but I still also believe and see that there's been a lot of funds that have been misallocated, that have not really, they're trying new things, but the new things aren't working, if that makes sense. And it's almost like, so the scale of things started where it was like, okay, kids were going into group homes, and you have a bunch of group homes where there are plenty of plethora of kids being there. But the problem there was that there was no supervision in there. There was no parents, there was no nothing. It was just kids would be dropped off at a group home, and whoever would run the group home was pretty much overseeing a bunch of kids. So it was like crazy. It was just kids being dropped off all over the place. That was original. Now it was moved to things like foster care. So you have foster care homes where there's separate actual individual homes,
Mm,
and people in that space would bring in kids. There'd be, contact by a social worker, and the social worker would have them, taking a kid. Some of these homes would have anywhere from 6 to 8 kids in the home, and problem with that was is that the resources weren't being utilized correctly, because then on the back end is that the state would pay the people that were having these foster homes, or would run the foster home per kid. So say you have 5 or 6 kids, you're getting $1,500 a month for one kid.
mm,
5 or 6 kids, that's quite a big lump sum of money, and it turns into a business for some people, and they're taking in foster kids for, money,
yeah.
and yes, for profit. Now, the latest kind of solution, so to say, is kinship care. And kinship care is by placing the child not in foster care, but placing them with another individual that is already directly in line of the family. So whether it be an aunt, an uncle, or somebody like that.
Okay.
And yeah, so the problem with that is that a lot of the times these kids are taken in and dropped off to the aunt or uncle, or wherever other family representative there is in the middle of the night. They're not prepared for anything. Plus, there's still a direct line of easy access to the original home, in which they can still do whatever they need to do, or they can grab their kid back or whatever. So there's a lot of missing pieces that are missing, connecting how these kids are being taken care of, and it's all on a case to case basis, which is a whole nother different story of how these cases are being taken care of, and how the cases are really being filed for each case. A lot of the stuff is not very neat, and it's not kept in files, and there's not a lot of information on these kids, because they're getting passed and passed and passed and passed through all these different hands. So the system is very broken. Let's just leave it at that, because it there's a lot of moving pieces, and there needs to be some big tangible changes, and I'm hoping to really give back and really be able to move some of these pieces. And there's no better asset to have change than somebody to have first person experience within the system, I think.
Indeed. Indeed. No, no. If I could give you a simple solution to like rectify that, I would, but I don't have the answer. I don't think anyone has the like simple, like quick fix answer where it doesn't exist
Mhm.
currently. But whoo, dear God, yeah, you know what? You've got a tall order there, sir, and I'm sure, like, yes, with a little bit of elbow grease and yeah, a lot of pulling, you might be able to like hopefully turn the ship a little, you know. Yeah, I have to ask, and this will be my final sort of question. Like, where would you like your story to go over the next few years?
I've really we've sat down, and I've talked about it, and people see the vastness in it and the depth, and I'd love to. I'd really love to. One, probably gonna do a autobiography at some point, but I really want to do it from a standpoint of really not a first person standpoint of, hey, this is my story and this is what it is. I really want to change it and kind of have it, yes, this is my storyline, but I want to make it into more of a relative story, something that everybody can relate to, as a story of trials and tribulations and triumph. And uh, being it put in that light, I think more people can really pull the pieces that they need to from it and implement it in their own lives. And hopefully, somewhere down the road, maybe it be turned into a feature film. I have the name for it that I'd love to call it, uh, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And you know, right now it's really, how can I impact as many lives right now as possible, well, with the time that I have on this, wonderful earth, and seeing what I can do best, and when I transition out of kind of the whole athlete realm and taking the pieces that I've learned over decades and decades of that and starting to transition and translate it to, valuable pieces and valuable assets to bring some change.
Mm, fantastic, fantastic. I'm sure when you do get to writing your book, yeah, I think, well, let's I've heard people write books in 2 weeks on this podcast. I've heard people which have taken 10 years to write books on
Yeah.
the podcast. Um, I wish you the sort of more on the more swift side of things. Yeah, God,
Yeah, yeah, so do I.
yeah. But I think with what you like, with your attitude, your like how you've come up and everything like this, I do think you're gonna make a fantastic impact on a number of people's lives. It's just like holding the course, even when like there's times where, hey, the path might not be so clear, and holding that course might be a little bit difficult to keep your hand on that tiller. But hey, Steve, yeah, you're an inspiration, and yeah, keep pushing forward, I say. I like to say thank you for coming on today. It has been a joy, a pleasure, an honor. Yeah, can you tell the lovely people out there how they can find you out on these interwebs?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the time today, and I appreciate the airspace to just kind of share. But the best place I believe anybody can find me is my website. It's www.stevieb.com. So it's STEVIEYB.com. And like I said, that's being revamped, but the website is very active right now. So it has all my social aspects on it, and it has emails and stuff that you can reach out if people have questions, or speaking engagement things if they need anything. So I'm an open book there, and there's a lot of things happening. So I look forward to connecting with everybody.
Excellent. Go out there, connect with Stephen here, get him talking. Yeah, he's a good person to talk to, trust me. Yeah, see how far it goes. But I'd like to say thank you to you again, Stephen. Pleasure. And yes, I'd like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for sticking with us to the end of the show. Please stay well, stay safe, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world, and then some. Have a great day, guys. Yes. Peace. And we are.